Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Build and grow a branch in Carlsbad, but their licensing was the old DRE licensing, and everyone else had gone to DOE or whatever it was called. And so nobody in the San Diego area with a mortgage license anymore, unless they were truly a broker, was licensed that way. But
Right.
if they worked for any other lending shop, which the majority did, they weren't licensed that way.
Yeah, you're talking about DOC.
DOC, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
And so to go from DRE to DOC, you gotta do all the education again. Like it's not an easy switch.
Yeah, it's not.
And I was DOC.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, well, I have to go through all that too. And I'm like, you know, it's a 6-month process. Like, I don't know how successful I'm gonna be recruiting somebody and say, oh, but wait a minute, 6 months till you can get a paycheck.
Right.
You know, like that goes over like a ton of bricks, right?
Right.
And so they're like, no, you don't have to worry about that. We're already making all the changes corporately. It's gonna be done in less than 90 days. I'm like, okay, cool. So they put me on a temporary salary until we got that all going. In 90 days comes and goes. I'm like, hey, what's up with the licensing? Well, and I'm like, look, can I write some sort of give loans that I got to give to somebody else? I did this whole behind the scenes pay me thing, and it was just a mess.
Yeah.
They wouldn't give me business cards. I couldn't market, you know, all the stuff because of the licensing.
Right.
Now we're at the 6-month mark. The licensing still, and this is the company licensing, you know. So I'm like, guys, like, how long do we?
Right.
Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
And
Work with me.
And they're like, well, you know, we actually just need you to go out and get some loans now. And, you know, I'm like, but yeah, I can't even get a business card. Like, I can't market myself because of the licensing that you've been preventing me from doing the last 6 months. Now you want me to rent? Well, yeah, because we're carrying you on the salary and that's not really our model, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, not my problem.
Right.
Like, the licensing thing, you told me was 90 days, we're now at 180 days. Like, what gives?
Yeah.
So anyways, I was like, I gotta get the heck out of here. So not that the company was bad, and they were a great company, but this licensing thing was a real stickling issue.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting recruited to Homebridge Financial Services.
Yes, I worked there.
And I got an area manager job working for them.
Small world.
Yeah. So I went to work for those guys.
When was that?
Gosh, I'm trying to think. That was 2015-ish,
Okay.
somewhere in there. So I was area manager for them down here.
Did you work for Ron Bergen?
No, but the name sounds super familiar.
So Ron was part of Prospect Mortgage, which Homebridge bought.
They bought that, so that happened right after I left.
Was my old boss.
Yeah, that happened right after I left. They were talking about that.
Larry Stroud, Ron Bergen.
Remember that?
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, they're old school, man.
Yeah, Rick.
They're like me.
I'm trying to remember the names now.
No, it's all right.
John Blank, but
it's okay.
So I went over to work for them and built 2 President's Club branches with them. I had one up in North County, one down here in Mission Valley, and doing pretty good. And the company was going through some changes, and they got rid of all the regional managers. And my regional manager, I don't remember Tim Owens, if that name rings a bell. So he's my regional manager, and really liked him a lot. Neat guy. And they got rid of him. I'm going, all right, well, I'm an area manager, and that's a little shaky ground, you know. And all of a sudden, you know, now my direct report was the Western Division president. I can't remember his name. I really liked him too. But all of a sudden, he wasn't taking my phone calls anymore. And we talked regularly. And we had meetings, and, you know, I'm one of his area managers, so I'm a direct report to him. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm lucky to get a hold of the guy once a month. I mean, it got real strange, real quick. But my branch managers, he was now talking to regularly, but not me. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where this is going.
Yeah.
And then I heard rumor of like some area managers on like the East Coast, they're getting rid of area managers. I'm like, crap, they're cutting, you know, the hatchet man.
Yeah, well, Homebridge went through a cleaning house time.
Yeah.
And you know, honestly, the reason I know about it is because I've got a lot of friends that.
It was right before they bought Prospect
Yeah.
Mortgage, because they couldn't have all these chiefs, right? There's just not enough seats for everybody.
Yeah.
And Prospect Mortgage here in San Diego was pretty big, and they had some big people, and some big longtime managers who you worked with.
Yeah.
And those guys were coming. They weren't getting let go.
Right.
But guys like me, see you later. So I could see what was happening. So actually, interesting enough, one of my escrow reps, he was like, hey, you know, you should talk to this company that I've been doing some deals with, and they're super military focused. The president of it is like a West Point grad, like they're like super into the military thing, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, I'm open for a conversation because I could see where things were headed. So I'm like, yeah, let's set up a call.
Yeah.
So anyways, I met up and I ended up going to work with and managing the Carlsbad branch for a company called BBMC Mortgage,
Okay.
which was owned by a bank out of Chicago, Bridgeview Bank.
Okay.
So the president of the mortgage division, West Point grad, name is Todd Jones. He was actually a managing partner with Guaranteed Rate for a long time.
Okay.
When Guaranteed Rate, and I remember this, so when I was hustling loans, going to all the realtor caravans, and I was still with Wells Fargo, this company, Guaranteed Rate, was sponsoring everything. I mean, every realtor function, it was Guaranteed Rate plastered.
I remember that.
And I was like, man, these guys are all over the place. Right?
Yep.
Well, full circle, when I ended up going to work there and met with Todd, that was because of Todd. So he was responsible for basically bringing them to California. And the owner was like, we ain't going to California. The market's too competitive. You got to drive the margins too low. It's not profitable, blah, 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 blah. And he's like, give me a shot. I can do it. And he did.
He had a guy that worked with him by the name of JJ Girotes.
Yep.
And JJ is a stud. I was on a radio show with him called Mr. Credit.
Yes.
With Derek
Evans?
Evans, yeah, Derek Evans. And that's how a bunch of my radio stuff, I ended up on ESPN radio because of Derek.
No kidding.
Yeah, so it's a long story, but yeah, we're all connected, baby.
Such a small world. Such a small world.
But I was on the radio as basically the real estate expert, and JJ was the military guy, or the real estate or mortgage guy with Guaranteed Rate. And what a great guy. I mean, I still to this day, I'm one of his biggest fans. I mean, he's super good guy.
Super good dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the connection there was Todd had done that, and he had left Guaranteed Rate. Him and the owner got crossways, but he built a consumer direct model for them.
Okay.
And so then he, there was some banking crisis left over from the crash, and some issues going on. Some of the banks weren't solvent yet. And so he had found this Bridgeview Bank in Chicago, and he said, hey, look, let me build this. I will not only make you solvent, but I'll make you profitable. And the bank was in real big trouble.
Yeah.
And they had nothing to lose. They said, sure, go for it. And he built this amazing consumer direct model for them, fixed all the bank's problems. And
amazing how that works.
Yeah, built it pretty big, consumer direct. So I managed their San Diego office for quite some time, or Carlsbad office, I should say, for quite a while. And that was neat. I met a lot of good people, and they were very VA focused. And so that was really good training. When you're a new loan officer with them, your first week onboarding, 3 full days on the VA loan.
Wow.
On your onboard training. I never had that any mortgage company I worked with.
Yeah.
It was 3 full days.
That's rare.
In depth. So really got quite an education on VA there, and that's, that really kind of made my focus. But at the time, my focus wasn't originating so much as it was, I was trying to climb the corporate ladder.
Sure.
I wanted to be the Todd Jones, right? So that's where I was headed. And so I was there, I managed them for, I want to say 4 years or so. And they had promoted some guys at some senior levels who wanted to show their worth. And I was their highest paid branch manager.
Okay.
And for this new senior dude, that was not good because my branch's numbers weren't the same as some of these guys making less. I'm like, hey, look, that guy's in the middle, that guy's in Ohio, that guy's in Illinois. Like, the cost of living is quite different, so it would make sense here, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, they're like, well, we're gonna have to talk about maybe changing some things. I said, look, I'm loyal to the company, and you guys, like, let's talk about it and see what we can come up with. Conversation never happened. 6 months go by, nothing changed. I'm like, okay, well, nope, I guess nothing's changing.
Right.
Cool. So we're just every day as usual. One day I get this email from HR. It's a new employment agreement. And it's like 6 months later after this conversation. I'm reading through it and I'm like, what in the heck? Like, just cutting my pay like crazy. So I was pretty heated and went into one of our executives' actually office with me, and I walked in there and I said, hey, did you know about this thing happening? He's like, no, I don't know anything about it. I'm like, okay, I quit. He's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, I'm out of here. And so anyways, a couple of days go on and I'm like, sorry, like that's just because of all these reasons. I'm like, that ain't cool. Like, you gotta just show up and chop my pay. We were supposed to like talk about it, but there clearly is no talking, so bye. Yeah. So
I've been there.
Such a small world. So I leave and I go to Synergy One Lending.
Okay.
And I'm like, you know what? I'm done climbing the corporate ladder thing. I'm just gonna go be an LO. Like I had for like 3 or 4 years, like pushed some of these LOs, and a couple of them really blossomed, and the rest of them I couldn't get off dead center. You know, they just weren't gonna do it. And I'm like, well, shoot, I can't have my income be determined by someone else's lack of effort, right? So I'm like, I can just go do it on my own. I'll make more money than I was making before.
So did you work with Tori Larson?
I did.
Yeah. Tori and I worked together at Home Capital Funding back in the early 2000s.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
He's a visionary.
Yeah.
He really is a visionary. But then I got to work with JJ.
Yeah.
So I came on board, and man, they had just a great corral of loan officers.
Derek was there too, right?
No, Derek had left.
Oh, he left?
He wasn't there when I was there. But they had a lot of other really great.
Was Craig Sewing there?
Craig had just left and started American Dream.
Gotcha. That was when I left radio. So I came on when he was starting American Dream. I came on and took over his second hour. Yeah, second hour of his radio show.
Okay.
I had the Mike Litton show on KCBQ, and I took the second hour 5 days a week. Yeah, so that was
such a small world.
Oh, dude,
crazy,
unbelievable.
so I go to Synergy, and I'm there, I don't know, 6 or so months.
Yeah.
And find out Bridgeview Bank, the bank, sold to new ownership, and the new ownership wanted no mortgage at all.
Wow.
So they were canning the whole mortgage division, and it was what saved them, right?
Yeah.
But the new ownership, and that's what they decided. So now the mortgage division is shopping for a new home.
Sure.
They come across Synergy One Lending.
Wow.
And so Synergy ends up buying the mortgage division, or merging with, I forget how it works, but they ended up linking up. So I'm like, well, do I just get my old branch back? I mean, I'm literally down the street, you know, and here we're all back again. And they're like, we'll talk about that one day, which the one day never happened. But yeah, it was really interesting. So they were all back in the fold, and all the same players and stuff.
So
and
tiny.
Yeah, so doing that, and finally just getting back into being a loan officer again after being, I mean, I've been in management now for quite a few years, so now I had to go kind of rekindle relationships and get back to doing what I was coaching everyone else to do. And at that time, I joined the core coaching program, and that really helped me kind of blossom as a loan officer and get things really going, and systems and processes and all that stuff. And yeah, I worked for Synergy, and that really got me going on like the whole video train. They were really big into doing video and stuff like that, and I had met Craig there as a result of it, you know, in the same building. And
yeah, they were ahead of their time.
They were. And I had just started doing a little bit of video before I met them. Like I kind of saw like, there's something to this a little bit, you know, using it, not necessarily so much like on social. I wasn't thinking that way. But what I was using it for at the time was I was sending it to like my clients in an email and explaining stuff just in a video rather than typing a big old long email. So that's how I was using it already.
Yeah.
And then they were doing all this video. They had studios, they had editors, like they had the whole thing. And I'm like, this is amazing. And I was so happy because I have a marketing mind. And every mortgage company I worked at up till now, the marketing department was the no department.
Yeah.
They just tell you no on everything.
Yeah.
You know, can I do this? No. Can I do this? No. And the people in the marketing department had no pedigree in marketing. They were just, someone got a job once upon a time in the marketing department and stayed there long enough to be promoted.
Right.
You know, but they didn't know anything about marketing. That's most mortgage companies' marketing departments still to this day. So I got Synergy, and I'm like, holy moly, this is amazing. And did some cool video stuff there, and really started getting into video. And then, you know, putting it on social and all that stuff, and that really helped me from that social media standpoint. And then I really started honing in like on VA loans. I hadn't created like the VA loan guy brand, but I was like, okay, this is my niche, right? And I had really jumped into it head first. And then finally, the last move from there is the current company I'm at, and it just was happenstance. The last winter I was doing loans at Synergy, and this was a frustration I've always had in business, but was the controlling of the margins, and the executives always had control of those dials, and that for, the layman person listening doesn't understand that, that's basically our rates higher or lower at my company than another company. And that's the margin between where we get the rate and what we sell the rate at, is that margin, right? And so they would adjust and lower that as needed. And I remember this particular summer, I think it was 2018, man, no one could touch me with rate. I was crushing brokers. I mean, anytime someone shot me, they're like, man, Jason, your rates are better. I'm like, great, I don't have control over it, but hallelujah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's go.
Yeah. Winter comes along, and it's usually a little slower, but I had an okay month stacked up, and going to get people locked and everything else as we're in December. And I'll never forget one of my clients who's buying a house. He calls me. He's like, hey man, I got referred to this other lender. I just was checking his rates. I love you, Jason, but he's like, dude, he's 5/8 of a point lower. And he's like, on this size
to
loan,
the rate.
Whoa. And he's like, on this size of a loan, he's like, that's more than my Beamer payment. He's like, I like you. And if it was like $30-$40 a month, I wouldn't care. But he's like, we're talking like $550-$600 a month. He's like, that's too much for me to say no to. So I went to my boss at the time. I'm like, what are we gonna do? He's like, sorry, there's nothing we can do. There's no margin. I'm like scratching my head, like, how did I go from this summer, no one could touch me, to now I just got smoked? And all of a sudden I had like 5 loans going that month, which for December was a decent month, down to 1. They all left for rate. And it was all because they juiced those margins so much. And I was so disappointed, so frustrated. But it happened to me at other companies in the past, so I knew it was happening. They all fire all the assistants and processors and stuff in the winter because business is slow. They jack up the margins. I'm like, that's such the wrong mentality. But all these mortgage executives do the same thing, right? They have this huge overhead expense. And I'm like, why don't you guys lower the margin and beat the pants off everybody and flood it with volume? You'll get to the same net result in income if we just do X amount more volume.
Right.
Lower the rates.
Right.
Of course, I'm screaming in the wind at that point.
Right.
So I go to this like networking event thing, right? Not too long after that, in that spring, and meet a guy who's now the CEO of our company. And so we had this luncheon and stuff, and we kind of hung out afterwards and just getting to know each other and shooting the breeze. And he had built a couple mortgage companies and sold them. And he's my age. He's not an old guy. And he's like, man, it wouldn't be cool if we could build a company that just fixed all the things we hated about these other mortgage companies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, that would be cool.
That would be cool.
And I said, dude, you figure something out like that, you call me. I'm interested.
Yeah.
And a month later, he gives me a buzz. All right, so somebody else told me I should do this, so you want to meet? I'm like, okay. So we just make
amazing how that works.
Yeah, make a T-bar graph. He's like, okay, let's write everything down we hate about all the companies we worked at, and we just made a list. And okay, can we solve for that on the right side? And it wasn't all of them, but a lot of them we could. And
some of them you'll never solve.
Some of them you can't. But I'm like, man, look at that.
This works.
He's like, well, I think we're gonna build a company. I'm like, holy smokes, okay, here we go.
This is the guy that knows how to do it.
And he knows how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's where I've left to where I'm at now. And right around that time is when I finally was seeking some advice from some mentors of mine, and they're like, dude, you got to go all in on the VA thing, because I was in it and then I was out of it, and I wasn't 100% committed to just being solely focused on VA. Not that I don't do the other loans, but that's my major marketing position. Right. And so anyways, I did. It was the best decision I ever made.
Sure.
But it was scary too at the same time.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, did that, and we got our company going, and here we are.
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. So we're up to today.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I told you I wanted to talk about was you just had a seminar you did the other day. I wasn't able to make it, unfortunately, because I had scheduling conflicts, but I'm going to go to the next one. But talk about what you're doing in terms of the seminars you're doing and the sort of value that you're adding. So
I do 2 seminars, one a consumer one and one a realtor one. So the value that I'm adding is essentially, as I've done all these loans over the years and a lot of VA, on the consumer facing one, I understand, and having been in the military, that, and just from your experiences in the past too, the military doesn't get told about their benefits of being a military member.
Yeah.
And it's not limited to just the VA loan. You get all sorts of benefits of having served in the military, but no one teaches that to you.
Right.
And it's not, in my opinion, it's not the military's fault. The military's job is to make you mission ready.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You're a soldier or an airman or a sailor, right? And that's your job. Your job isn't Mr. Real Estate Investor, right? But there's some cool,
that's where you and I differ a little bit. Because,
well, it's not their job, that's not the military's job.
Here's the deal. The military's job is their welfare, okay?
Yes.
And I believe, and again, I'm just throwing this out there, but I believe that, and I know you didn't even want here for a debate, but they're responsible for their welfare. And I believe a big part of their welfare is them knowing that they have this benefit available. And it's something that's remarkable, and they don't realize it's zero down. They don't realize they can do a VA no-no. They don't realize they can do a lot of the things that they can do.
True.
They just don't. And
Yeah.
so my feeling about it is what you're doing is invaluable because they need to know this stuff.
They do.
Okay? And it's not just them, and I'm just going to throw this out there. It's not just them you're talking to. You're talking to all the people they know.
Right.
Okay? Like I said, 5 to 55, right? So there's, they talk. They all talk amongst each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And hey, I just went to this thing the other day, and right? And so it's, what you're doing is incredibly important. And so on the consumer side, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to sit with you and have this done, is what you're doing is invaluable for the consumer. It's also invaluable for realtors because realtors don't know a lot about the mortgage business, and they know even less about VA loans.
Sure.
Okay, and they deal with people all the time that walk into their open house, and they're active duty or they're veterans or whatever, and they never ask the question. They never ask the question, and I know this because I owned a Keller Williams office for 18 years. Okay. One of the very first things we would do anytime we ever had a situation where we had a challenge on the mortgage side is we'd ask them, are you VA eligible by chance? Well, yeah. Why? Dude, right?
Should be doing that long.
I'm not joking.
Yeah.
And these are loans that couldn't go conventional, but they'll go VA. They couldn't go FHA, but they can go VA. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I'm telling you from experience, okay? What you're doing for realtors and what you're doing for consumers is invaluable. And I really, really, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate you doing this.
Well, thank
Okay?
you. Yeah.
So talk about the realtor seminars that you're doing.
So the realtor seminars, basically we're teaching them all the stuff where they're getting tripped up.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is fear and misconception. And that's a lot of it, right? There is this mentality in the realtor community that the VA loan is basically a subprime loan.
Right.
It's for the garbage of home buyers out there.
Right.
You're the bottom of the barrel. That's why you have a VA loan.
Yeah.
If you were really worth your salt, you'd have a conventional loan.
Right.
Well, I'm here to tell you, and the statistics will back this up. The profile of a VA buyer has higher level of education,
Yep.
higher household income,
Yep.
higher credit score,
Yep.
and typically higher amount of reserves.
Right. And less default.
The lowest amount of defaults.
VA loans are the lowest defaulted mortgages on the planet.
Yes.
Okay, by far. And they're zero down. Okay?
Tell me how that makes them bad.
Exactly, right? That's exactly, and a lot of what you're battling with is you're educating these realtors. The ones that they're going to need to educate and you're going to need to educate are the listing agents, because these listing agents, for whatever reason, have this negative connotation when it comes to, or negative opinion when it comes to VA loans. It's probably because they've dealt with people that didn't know what they were doing in the past.
Totally.
Right? And maybe they've, it may be from experience or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, what you're doing is invaluable in terms of teaching people what they need to know about this. Because a benefit in and of itself is nothing if you can't use it.
Right.
Okay? Okay.
Yeah. So, we talk about that a lot. And I think, when I come up against a listing agent or, someone in one of those classes who is now like, oh, well, it's not the VA loan I don't like. It's now the inspections or the appraiser or something to that effect, because they never want to be like, oh, I'm not discriminating.
Right.
But ultimately, it's just a lack of knowledge, right? And so what we're teaching them is the things they didn't know, right, which we just discussed on the comparison between the loan products and the profile of that consumer. And then talking to them about, okay, what is this VA appraisal, the minimum property requirements, the pest inspection, what is this stuff? Why is it required? Why is it there? Why does it feel like such a hurdle? It's not a hurdle, but they don't understand that till they sit through the class and get it, right? And the reason that the VA has these things in place, which arguably I think conventional loans should as well.
I do too.
But the reason you have the minimum property requirements on a VA appraisal and the pest inspection is because the VA wants to make sure that its borrower is not put in harm's way.
Right.
They want to make sure there's no health or safety concerns.
Trying to protect them.
They're trying to protect them,
Yeah.
right? This is somebody's home, right?
Right.
They're spending a
And
lot
if
of
you're
time
a realtor, you should want to protect them too.
Yeah, because wouldn't you think there's some liability on you as the realtor if you're selling a dog shit product?
True.
Right.
And here's the thing. The real estate community, unfortunately, the real estate community is all about the easy way out. Okay? If it's easy and it gets them paid faster, they're all about it. That's not the way we need to be focused. And by the way, one of the things I'm doing is I'm writing a book for realtors on how to succeed in real estate, but how to succeed in real estate the correct way, right? One of the least favorite things in the world, one of the least favorite terms for me in the world is hacking. Okay? None of this stuff is a hack.
No.
Okay? You either do it right and you do it with the consumer in your focus or as your focus, or get out of the business. Okay? That's simple. That's the way I look at it.
You gotta be doing it
that's
for the right
probably a little too hard-nosed,
Yeah.
but it is what it is. This is not a business that you get into so you can get paid quick and everybody else is a victim of it. That's not the way this thing works. Your job as the expert, and you know this, your job as the expert is to take care of them. All VA's mission is to take the best care of the veteran they possibly can. Period.
That's it. Yeah, and it gets hung up. It's funny. There was I was just in like a Facebook chat about this the other day, and another friend of mine who's a big VA lender in the Midwest, and he just raised the question just to get the reaction from people. But essentially he was asking that question on this stuff, and I commented, and he's like something about like, why don't you like doing VA deals because of the appraisal, and everyone was responding to the appraisal and the pest, and I said, oh, because we like to sell homes. It's easier to sell a home that can provide a health or a safety issue. It's too hard to sell one that's safe.
Right.
But that's ultimately the point. And I share a real story that I had in my class about a real live deal. So I had done a refinance for an elderly couple, veteran couple up in Northern California many years ago. And so we're doing the refinance, and I was just asking them some questions about their purchase and how that went, because they were in an FHA loan. And I was like, okay, well, how come you're a vet and you did an FHA loan, you didn't do a VA loan just out of the gate, just out of curiosity? Most often when I ask people that question, and I was on an event on Camp Pendleton years ago, and I got this response a lot, and I asked them, hey, do you own a home? Yeah. Did you use your VA loan? No. And they'd say, why? What did you use? Oh, well, I used an FHA loan. Why? My realtor told me to. My realtor told me to. My realtor told me to.
Yeah, this is
They all get told by their realtor, don't use the VA loan.
Right.
So as I'm with this client, I know it's like this curse, right?
What?
So I'm helping him with his VA loan. I said, well, he goes, but we did try to use a VA loan. I said, oh, okay, tell me more about that. He goes, well, we started out, I was doing a VA loan, buying this house. And we got into it, and our loan officer at the time called us up and said, hey, the VA doesn't like this house, and so we're gonna have to switch to FHA. And I had the money for the down payment, so we switched to no big deal. I said, that's interesting, because it's a regular house. It's not like a condo that had to be approved and wasn't, that kind of thing.
Right.
Just a regular house. I'm like, the VA didn't like it. That's not a real thing.
Right.
So there was a problem, and the loan officer was trying to skirt around a problem. So tell him, did you qualify? He's like, yeah, more than qualified. You see my stuff now, I qualify. I'm like, yeah, you do. And you're retired. He's like, well, I was working then, so I made more money. I'm like, okay, so what else? So we started going into it. Long story short, the house is on septic and well. Well, the VA, when that happens, requires they both be inspected. Now, what the reason they're inspecting them is health and safety.
Yeah.
Right? They want to make sure it's not going to harm anybody that's living there.
Right.
Well, he's like, yeah, I don't know what the issue was, but we got it done. And so anyways, I'm like, okay, we'll move forward on the refinance. We got to do those inspections, blah, blah, blah. So we get the well test back. fail.
Yeah.
High levels of arsenic.
Yeah. They've been drinking that water this whole time.
Not only been drinking that water that whole time, his wife developed cancer from it. And his 2 twin grandbabies, one of the 2, every time they came to visit grandma and grandpa, went home sicker than a dog. And the doctors couldn't figure it out. And the doctors for his wife couldn't, there's no explanation for why the cancer started. It just, she had cancer now. And I said, well, this is the reason.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. And so when you peel back the layers of that story,
mm-hmm.
and why did that happen, right? Well, the reason that happened is the loan officer at the time was trying to impress the realtor.
Mm-hmm.
Because in this realtor-lender relationship, there seems to be a pedestal that the realtor is on and the loan officer is subservient to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the loan officer is always trying to do their absolute best to impress this realtor
mm-hmm.
to hopefully get another deal in the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's always the objective, right? We always want to do that. But what he did is he skirted taking care of the customer because he was looking out for his interest, not the client's.
Right, and the realtor's looking out for the realtor's best interest, not the client's best interest.
Correct.
That's
so,
simple.
as he's trying to maintain his closing date so he doesn't look bad to the realtor and earn more business potentially,
mm-hmm.
the loan officer makes the decision on his own that we're going to switch, and I'm going to lie to you about the reason that we're
mm-hmm.
switching. We're just getting the deal done.
Mm-hmm.
So then maybe you can get more business from that realtor. And I don't know if that happened or not, but that was the reason. So you can see the dynamics of the 2 industries working together and how that spit out a bad result for the client,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're both interested in the deal and the closing. And I'll tell you, like, some of the pressure we get from agents on, like, are we gonna make the closing date? When are the docs coming out? Is this done? Is this done? It's like, it's high pressure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so much on us sometimes from some agents
mm-hmm.
that as the loan officer, I get where he was,
mm-hmm.
like, I can sense where he was. Like, man, I'm getting a lot of pressure and I want to impress. Maybe it's a big agent, right? I want to impress them. Maybe I have a chance to follow up with them or whatever. And so he's just trying to do what he can to make this deal happen. And the realtor's probably riding him like, hey, I want to close 2 days early. Let's go. I know closing's on a Monday. I want to close on Friday. And he's probably dealing with that. Hey, is the appraisal in yet? All that stuff. And he's going, shoot, man, I got to make sure I measure up.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, yeah, that's a real life example of why all loans should have to go through the same scrutiny that the VA does,
mm-hmm.
but they don't. And you get that thought process, that mysticism around like, oh, there's the inspections, they kill all the deals.
Mm-hmm.
No, the property kills the deal in those. It wasn't the loan,
mm-hmm.
it wasn't the product, it was the property.
Right.
You're selling cars. You sell a lemon, it's a lemon.
Right.
It's not the bank who financed its fault that the car sucks.
There's no 2 ways about it.
Right. It's the car. Right. And the salesman might have known something,
mm-hmm.
maybe not, right? So anyways, that's a lot of what we get through, uncovering that stuff, and the reason why, right? Because I get the down payment question a lot, right? And during the pandemic, when money was free
mm-hmm.
and everyone's cash rolling and bank rolling money, and they're offering 50 or 100 grand over asking price, a VA offer didn't stand a chance,
right?
Because a lot of active duty, they don't have that kind of cash. They didn't just sell a big house in San Diego to go put down on another big house in San Diego, right? So they're not sitting on those kinds of funds, and they essentially get discriminated against because they don't have that big down payment or the extra cash on top, or both in some instances. So in that class, I teach them, okay, here's the real down payment is a 25% down payment.
Mm-hmm.
The government's guaranteeing that. There's no guarantee from anyone else. The federal government's guaranteeing that 25%. Well, yeah, still, but there's no cash down. I said, okay, let me show you a slide. So I show them this slide. It's a black and white photo, and it's a group of like 8 Air Force airmen, and they're carrying out a casket with the American flag draped over it.
Mm-hmm.
They're carrying it out of the back of a C-130.
Mm-hmm.
I said, I want you guys to sit and just look at this photo for a minute. And now ask yourself the question. I just got 3 offers on this house. One of them's VA, doesn't have a down payment. Look at this picture again. And again. That down payment far supersedes the 50 grand or 100 grand or whatever it is those other clients are putting down. It clobbers it. Why? Because they said, hey, for you to go sell real estate, I'll take a bullet.
Mm-hmm.
And that person did.
Yeah.
That's why you get to sell real estate. And you're gonna now say, well, the down payment's not big enough, it doesn't look sexy on paper.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
How many bullets you have whizzing by your head so you could sell real estate?
Exactly.
0.
Right.
He did.
Yeah.
Right? And so I think
the ultimate price, baby.
I think having that image and showing them that reality hopefully it helps. You know, I mean, hopefully I'm making a difference with some of that stuff.
It's going to help with some people.
Yeah.
There are some people you're not going to get to,
Right.
but you were going to get to them anyway.
True.
Okay. But this is a real systemic issue in our industry, and it's something that I'm just crazy enough to think I can drive a narrative that this needs to change. Okay, has to change, and we're going to get it changed if there's any way I can get it done. You know, and that's part of why we're writing the book. So the first book we're writing, just so you know, we start January of 2024, so we're in a couple of months, because it's currently November of 2023. And it's on homeownership. And what I'd like to do, if you're okay with it, is I'd like to interview you for that book.
Sure.
I'd love to have you be a contributor in what we're doing. But basically what it's about is because of the Great Recession in 2008, a lot of kids that were kids at the time are now adults. We call them millennials, okay? They have a lot of PTSD as it relates to real estate and what happened in the Great Recession. They watched the people around them that they loved lose their houses, and lose their houses, and oftentimes because of fraud, okay? There was a lot of fraud going on. So they have a lot of PTSD where real estate's concerned. We're writing this first book on homeownership because we're taking the case to millennials that homeownership needs to be part of the American dream again, okay? And we're literally taking this case directly to them. And the whole idea is, look, if you buy a house and things go sideways and you lose your house like you watched people do in the Great Recession, here's the remedy. You have bankruptcy, you have foreclosure, you have deed in lieu thereof, you have short sale, you have all these different things that you can employ that will help you save your credit and help you get back on your feet. By the way, if you go through a foreclosure and a bankruptcy, here's how you get back on your feet. And by the way, did you know that you don't have to wait 7 years after a foreclosure to buy a house? You can use an FHA loan to buy a house within just a very short time. So, you with me?
Right.
There are solutions out there. So this is a book that's literally solutions based, and we're taking the case directly to millennials to why the American dream needs to include homeownership again. And you know, there's tens of millions of them, okay? So according to the National Association of Realtors, the average net worth of a homeowner is $300,000 plus. The average net worth of a tenant is less than $8,000. Take that $292,000 delta, and I know you don't like math, but take that $292,000 delta and multiply it by tens of millions of people. 3/4 of this nation's net worth is real estate. Our standard of living in this country is dropping right now, and it's part of it is what's happening with millennials. Okay, so that's what I'm getting at. So I'm just crazy enough to believe I can drive a national narrative where that's concerned, and I'm crazy enough to believe I can drive a national narrative where realtors are concerned. So we're going to go do it together if you're up for it.
I'm up for it.
I appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah.
And I appreciate what you're doing. I really do.
Thank you.
And I appreciate you being on this podcast.
Thanks for having me, man.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.